I'm very pleased to introduce our next speaker. It's Dr. Brene Brown. I've run into countless people who have read her books. She's a research professor at the University of Houston, and she's not like a professor you've had who teaches economics or Spanish or math. Brene studies things like vulnerability and authenticity and shame, and she's here to teach us about the upside of being vulnerable. Thank you, Brene.
I have to start with a confession. I'm so relieved that Sal Khan is so great in person because I feel like I've been having a secret relationship with him. I even kind of blushed when he came on stage. For the last year, in every parent's life, there are these defining moments, like when your child can outrun you for the first time, when they bring home homework you can't help them with for the first time. So that's how I met Sal. Ellen came home with algebra homework this year, and she said, I'm stuck. She was kind of tearful. She's like, I'm not sure what's going on. And I had two opportunities, the honorable and the not so honorable. The honorable would be to say, let me introduce you to the Khan Academy. But I didn't do that. I said, I need to fire off an email. I'll be right back. So I went into my office, I took copious notes on my hand, and I came back and I said, I think we can do this. Let's start with orders of operation. So I'm very grateful for the Khan Academy because she's like, that's awesome, Mom. I said, anything you need, bring it right back to me. I'm going, when Ernie and Cheryl called and said, how would you like to do the 10-minute update, the alumni update, because I spoke here in 2009. I said yes, because I'm a huge fan of with Up, and I'm also a huge fan of Ernie and Cheryl's. And I thought about, what am I going to talk about? What's the update? So I'll start here. My clicker can be engaged. Am I not clicking? I'm not clicking. I'm hearing it's coming. This is a new sign in our house at home. And I bought it for a couple of reasons, one professional, one personal. And the personal reason is, as a researcher and someone who speaks a lot in organizations and schools, one of the things that I have really noticed over the last 18 months is how profound this cultural message of fun, fast, and easy has invaded every aspect of our lives. I spent the first 6 years of my work studying shame, that feeling that makes us feel less than and not enough. And we all know it. And one of the things that has become increasingly disturbing to me is that I see college-age students feeling small because things are not easy for them. And the message is, not only should you be able to do it and do it well, it should be a breeze. And so I wanted to put this in my house because I believe in kind of the old school wisdom of hard work and that we can do hard things. The other reason I love this sign is because, as a researcher, my question that I've asked over the last decade has simply been this. We live in a culture of scarcity, a culture of never enough. Never good enough, wealthy enough, rich enough, never not enough time. I've got a good friend, Lynn Twist, who wrote a book called The Soul of Money. And she writes in this book, every morning we wake up, and the first thing we say before our feet hit the floor is, I didn't get enough sleep. And at night we crawl into bed, and the last thing we say before our head hits the pillow is, I didn't get enough done. And there's this major culture of scarcity, of not enough. And so my question as a researcher has been, for the men and women who wake up every day and navigate this culture from a place of worthiness, a place of, I'm imperfect, I'm vulnerable, but I'm enough? What do they have in common? And as a qualitative researcher, what I often end up with in terms of data are a lot of words that don't make sense to me. And so I ended up with some words as part of my research, studying these folks, these men and women who are engaging with the world from a place of worthiness. I ended up with some words that look like this: tenacity, strategic, I can, surviving failure, bulldogging it, struggle, perseverance. The men and women who were living and loving these wholehearted lives had these things in common. And I couldn't figure out exactly what it was. The closest I could get from my own personal vocabulary was Plan B. They were Plan Bers, and they were kind of scrappy. They could figure things out. They could get things done. The one thing I never thought that it was, that it ended up being, was this: hope. I didn't think it was hope because when I think of hope, I think of this. I'm a huge Emily Dickinson fan, and I love this poem. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. We have some very romantic and poetic notions of hope. We use the word all the time. We throw it around. I really hope I get that job. I really hope I make the soccer team. I really hope things go well. But the more I looked into hope, the more I realized that we're completely off base, and this is a beautiful poem, but has nothing to do with what hope really is. There's a researcher at the University of Kansas, Lawrence, C.R. Schneider, he died a couple of years ago, who spent his career studying hope. And I lucked into his research because when I had my list of words that all of these wholehearted men and women had in common, I took a combination of them one day for the millionth time, doing a keyword search in the academic literature, and I came up with his theory on hope. And it not only changed the way I think about my work, but it changed my life. And it changed the way I'm raising my kids. As it turns out, hope is not an emotion at all. I think most of us think of hope as a feeling of possibility, of positivity. I'm very hopeful. What hope actually is it is a cognitive thinking approach. Hope is not how we feel, it's how we think. And here is the most, I think, profound news of all. It is 100% teachable. The majority, we can measure hope in people. They measure highly hopeful or low hopefulness. What we see traditionally in high levels, in people who have high levels of hope, is they learned it through parenting, through their parents, who either explicitly taught hope or modeled hope. And as you can see, there are three pieces of it: goals, pathway, and agency. What this means simply is people who have high levels of hope in their lives have these three abilities. They can set goals, which is in itself not an easy task, and we'll talk about it more in a second. They can cultivate pathways to achieving those goals, and they have a sense of agency. And agency is simply, I believe I can do it. Here's the part that, let me just ask, how many educators in the audience today? I know there's a large number. How many parents in the audience? I knew there was a larger number. Here's the part that I think is so important. Hope is a function of struggle. The two prerequisites for high levels of hopefulness are perseverance and tenacity. The people who have the highest levels of hope have the most experiences of failure. So let me give you an example of how these things work together. Goals, pathways. I'm going to set this down. Goals, pathway, and agency. Earlier this year, I was doing a radio show with Corinne Modakaitis. She has a show called How She Really Does It. And she and I were talking, and through the course of the radio show, we kind of discovered that we're both ex-swimmers. She went on to be like an Olympic swimmer and now coaches elite swimming. I'm a shame researcher. So our levels of swimming took different paths. But I was talking about hopefulness, and she said, let me ask you this question. I have an exercise that I do with my swimmers all the time, and I've been getting an increasing amount of flack about this exercise, and I want to know what you think. Does everybody know what a flip turn is? Okay, a flip turn is, in competitive swimming, when you swim up to the wall, instead of touching and pushing off with your feet, you do kind of a somersault and you push off. And when you're good at it, it's actually much faster than touching the wall and pushing off. So this is how she runs her flip turn clinic. After practice, she's taught the mechanics of flip turns. The kids line up, they dive in, and they have to get 5 flip turns thumbs up before they can leave practice. So they swim in, they flip turn, they push off, they look up, and she's standing there, and she either gives them this or this. And they have to have 5 of these to get out of practice. So she says the problem is the parents are putting their foot down and saying, we don't want you to do this anymore to our children. How would you feel about this? And she said, what do you think? I think we were on cable radio because I think I said, holy crap. I said, I think that's terrible. And let me tell you why. We're in swim team, and we're in flip turn clinic. Ready? Flip turn. Flip turn. Flip turn. Flip turn. You see that moment? How many of you know that moment? How many of you think that's an important moment? That's what hope looks like. Hope looks like, I've got a goal. It's reachable. I believe in my ability to get there, even if I have to plan B it. One of the things that's happened in our culture is that we are not letting our children have any experiences of failure. No experiences of hard work. Failure, more hard work equals success. What happens, and what I see as a college professor often, is when they get to us, it's a whole different ballgame. Like, most of my friends get text messages when their children's averages fall below 95. We don't do that in college. The workforce, the last Fortune 200 company I spoke with, they said one of the greatest problems with a number of younger employees contacting their parents about performance evaluations and asking them if they could call their bosses. There's an issue. And the issue is this moment is a gift. And I think often, I'll never find my remote now. Y'all lead me to it. Okay. We think of hope as this really binding emotion, this kind of collective dreaming that we do together. And I think it can be a collective binding experience, but it is not bound around gauzy feelings of possibility. When hope brings people together, it brings people together from a place of struggle through hard work to achievement. And people who experience that together, whether you're a team working in an ad agency on the next presentation, or you're a family, or you're a group of kids in class, what brings people together is the sense of success, of accomplishment, having experienced struggle. And so what I would invite you to think about at least, is that hope is a function of struggle. And it's the product of not tying our failure to who we are. The biggest thing that gets in the way of this whole idea of agency and pathway is that if I fail, I am a failure. What we see in high hopeful people is that they can separate their achievements and their struggles and their failures from who they are as people. So I appreciate your time today. I am so grateful to be invited back. And the next time you hear the word hope, I hope you remember that it's a function of hard work. There's a great quote that says, "Dreams don't work unless we do." And I think the whole idea of we can do hard things and we can do them together has been demonstrated beautifully, more eloquently than I could ever do today here. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my ideas with you. So thank you.
One of Houston's own, Brene Brown.